I think Sylvester Stallone's greatest contribution to entertainment isn't his acting. I think it's his writing. And if you asked me to pick one thing of all of the pieces he's ever written to prove that point, it would be Over the Top. This video is still not sponsored by Tubi or anyone else for that matter. Dang it. If you watched my video on the toughest man in the world, you know by now that I've got a habit of finding old movies on Tubi and then spending way too much time thinking about them. I've never done crack, but I'm pretty sure that's what Tubi is like for me. Before I even finished writing my essay on the toughest man in the world, I already knew what film I wanted to talk about next. Released in 1987, Over the Top stars Sylvester Stallone as Lincoln Hawk, long-haul trucker and impossibly handsome man. His son, 12-year-old Michael, is attending some kind of military boarding school. It's the end of the term, and his father is coming to pick him up. One small problem: Lincoln left Michael and his mom 10 years ago, and Michael doesn't know this man at all. Now, they're going to spend the next few days driving through California to get Michael back to his mom, Christina, in time for her surgery. She's dying, and the whole road trip was actually her idea in hopes that it would give them a chance to build a relationship so Michael would still have a parent when she's gone. This is all, understandably, a lot for Michael. He's been primarily raised by his mother and his grandpa. And his grandpa, Mr. Cutler, is a very wealthy man that's used to being in control and getting what he wants. It becomes clear pretty early on that Grandpa isn't a big fan of Lincoln, and he said some very negative things about him to Michael. Lincoln and Michael don't have a ton in common initially. They don't like the same foods, they don't like the same music, and they don't appear to have the same values. But as they spend more time together on the road, they quickly start to fall into a groove. Lincoln starts sharing his own values and interests with Michael, and they start to bond over the things that they do have in common instead of focusing on the things that they don't. Lincoln even teaches Michael how to drive his big rig. Mr. Cutler has his goons kidnap Michael in order to finally get him back home. Lincoln doesn't take that lying down. He intercepts the vehicle and gets Michael back unharmed. Mr. Cutler is not happy with this development, and he sets out to do things through the legal system instead. His lawyer tells him that he doesn't have much of a case to keep Michael away from his dad unless Lincoln can't support him. That won't stop Mr. Cutler from trying. Continuing their drive through California, Lincoln and Michael also continue to develop their relationship. They talk about goals, and they start dreaming about a future working together in their own trucking business. Eventually, Michael gets comfortable enough to ask his dad one of the most difficult questions he could. Why did he leave? Lincoln never really gives Michael a straight answer other than to say he had reasons and he made a mistake. Then he follows it up with this.
Sometimes it happens in life. We all make mistakes.
Unfortunately, all that is golden cannot stay. Lincoln and Michael arrive at the hospital only to learn that Christina passed away earlier in the day. Neither gets the chance to say goodbye. Distraught, Michael blames Lincoln. If not for their road trip, he could have been there. Michael finds a taxi, and he heads back home to Mr. Cutler. Christina's funeral is hard on everyone, but it does pass without incident. Lincoln takes some time to think and reflect. At the end of his rope, eventually he does the only thing he can think of to get Michael back. After further traumatizing his child and getting himself arrested, Lincoln and Michael have a heart-to-heart at the jail. Lincoln promises that even though he doesn't have much, they would have enough if they were together. Michael seems like he really wants to believe his dad, but he struggles to reconcile that with the fact that, for all he knows, his dad could very well just decide to leave tomorrow. He wants to stay with Mr. Cutler and the only stability he has left. With all of that in mind, Lincoln actually ends up agreeing to sign over legal custody of Michael to Mr. Cutler in exchange for the charges against him being dropped. Freshly out of jail, Lincoln doesn't have much left to lose. He's got his eyes set on a competition being held in Las Vegas, and it's time to put it all on the line. After selling the one thing he has left in the world, his rig, Lincoln bets it all on himself to win. Meanwhile, Michael starts doing some digging through his late mother's things. Having spent his life under the impression that Lincoln left and never thought about him again, he comes across a stack of letters between his parents from over the years. After doing some reading, Michael comes to the realization that even though Lincoln wasn't there, he did always love and care about his son. With that in mind, Michael steals one of his grandpa's cars and takes off to the airport. After catching a flight to Vegas and making his way to the competition all on his own, this kid is extremely resourceful, he finds Lincoln in time to cheer him on. Mr. Cutler catches on pretty quickly to what's going on and makes his way to Las Vegas as well. In a tense confrontation between Lincoln and Mr. Cutler, Grandpa tries to explain to Lincoln where he's coming from. Now that Christina is gone, Michael is the only family he has left in the world. From his perspective, Lincoln gave up the right to raise him when he walked out. If he takes Michael from Mr. Cutler now, he's taking everything Mr. Cutler has left. To prevent this from happening, Mr. Cutler offers Lincoln his own new rig and a whole bunch of money to just quit it all right now and leave for good. Lincoln basically tells him to take his truck and his custody papers and shove it. He's going to win this competition, and he's going to win the respect and trust of his son in the process. After a heart-to-heart with Michael, Lincoln explains to him that it's not just up to them anymore. Mr. Cutler has a say now, and they have to be ready to accept whatever he decides. Instead of focusing on that, they're going to put it all into Lincoln winning the competition. After that big win, Mr. Cutler, seeing the love and affection between Lincoln and Michael, has a dawning realization. He doesn't want to be the one responsible for breaking up the father-son relationship they've forged. He agrees to let Michael stay with Lincoln, and they ride off in the new rig, talking about their plans for the future together. So that's the story of Over the Top. Well, wait, I should probably also mention that competition that Lincoln entered is the International Arm Wrestling Championships. Yeah, Lincoln takes arm wrestling very seriously. Now, if arm wrestling feels like a silly backdrop for all of this, I think that's on us as the viewer. The film never plays it as a joke. The main rival, Bull Hurley, is played by a man named Rick Zumwalt Jr., who unfortunately passed away in 2003. In addition to being an actor, this man was a real-life professional arm wrestler before and during the era of this film. And let's talk about the tournament itself real quick. The tournament that they show in the film was real. The storyline matches were staged and filmed on the same location the next day, but a lot of the footage that doesn't feature Stallone competing was actual footage from what is considered to be the biggest event in arm wrestling history. Seriously, I'm going to leave a link below in the description to a website called the Armwrestling Archives. They've got a page dedicated to this actual international tournament, which was also called Over the Top, as well as a ton of other information about the history of the sport itself. If you want a really fun rabbit hole to go down, go check their page out. If we take the arm wrestling in Over the Top as seriously as we take the boxing in Rocky, this becomes a much more complex film. In Rocky, the boxing isn't about boxing. It's the vehicle chosen by a man who is desperate to prove something to himself. Likewise, in Over the Top, arm wrestling isn't about arm wrestling. Lincoln has something to prove to himself and to his son, and arm wrestling is one of the ways he chooses to do that. I think one of Stallone's greatest talents is his ability to use physical competition to tell compelling and dramatic stories about people. Before I start giving Stallone too much of the credit, let's talk for a minute about the history of the writing of this film. The whole story of it's pretty complicated, and it went through a number of iterations before it got to the final version that they actually shot. I can't say exactly who came up with what, but the story is credited to Gary Conway and David Engelbach, while the screenplay is credited to Sylvester Stallone and a man named Sterling Silliphant. If you're like me and you don't know Sterling Silliphant by name, don't worry, I got you. Silliphant was an Academy Award-winning screenwriter for his work on the film In the Heat of the Night, starring Sidney Poitier.
They call me Mr. Tibbs.
He also won a Golden Globe for the screenplay of a film called Charlie.
The Coming Generation.
Test tube conception, laboratory birth, TV education, brave new dreams, brave new hates, brave new wars, a beautifully purposeless process of society suicide.
He's also credited with the screenplays of such films as The Poseidon Adventure, The Towering Inferno, and Shaft in Africa, where bad mother John Shaft goes undercover to Africa to break up a modern slavery ring.
The biggest shaft of all. Shaft in Africa.
And according to his IMDb page, he used to do martial arts with Bruce Lee back in the 60s. That has nothing to do with anything, but I do love a fun fact. My point is, Sterling Silliphant is a legit writer. With the exception of Shaft in Africa, all of the other films of his that I listed are still pretty widely regarded as classics. One thing that I think all of those pieces have in common is an understanding of complex relationships set against extreme circumstances. So let's take a look at some of the complex relationships in this film. The dynamic between Lincoln and Michael is at the heart of the story. Lincoln is Michael's biological father, but what does that mean when he's also been absent by his own choice for reasons he never tries to explain for most of Michael's life? Michael owes Lincoln nothing. Starting out, he has no reason to trust this man, and no reason to forgive him. The onus is on Lincoln to prove that he can be what Michael needs. Well, What does Michael actually need from his father? We know that Lincoln is barely scraping by financially. His home is on the road, so by the time he sells his rig to get the money to bet on himself in the competition, he literally has nothing of monetary value left. He knows that he can't provide financially for Michael in the same way that Mr. Cutler can. I think Mr. Cutler, played by Robert Loggia,
Whoa, Robert Loggia!
is one of the most complicated characters in the film. Obviously, he does a lot of things that paint him in a pretty negative light. He makes it clear throughout the movie that he is not above lying, cheating, or using his wealth and power to get what he wants. However, I would absolutely not view him as a villain in this story. An antagonist, sure, but the man is no villain. For starters, his willingness to accept that he was wrong and let go of control is literally the only reason that this film has a happy ending. If not for this one moment of silent character growth, Michael would not be leaving with Lincoln at the end of that tournament. Mr. Cutler already has his custody papers by this point. A villain wouldn't give up when they had already won. Instead, I think what we're looking at is a man of means and power coming to grip with the fact that the most important things in life will always be beyond his control. His only child dies. All he has left is his grandson, who he's raised as his own. He has provided everything for Michael, and not just monetarily. Mr. Cutler's actions in the film are wrong, but that doesn't mean that his motivations are. Lincoln really did leave. Mr. Cutler really did help raise Michael. He loves Michael, truly. The problem is when he expresses his love as possessiveness. Michael becomes his, and that view of love tends to lead us down some dark paths if we're not careful. Fortunately for everyone, Mr. Cutler was willing to accept that moment of clarity. And honestly, I think that's where Lincoln and Mr. Cutler have more in common than either of them would probably like to admit. Both men think that they know what's best for Michael. Both men genuinely love him. And both men have to learn to recognize that Michael is a person and not a prize. Lincoln's path to that conclusion starts when he recognizes that Michael's biggest fears and reservations about him aren't the lies that Mr. Cutler told him. They're based on Michael's own observations and interpretations of Lincoln's actions. At the end of the day, he is the reason that Michael feels the way he does. Lincoln makes the very difficult decision to own that, and he does what is uncomfortable for himself because he believes that it's what Michael wants. The most important thing that Lincoln does in this movie is not win the championship. It's the moment that he agrees to respect Michael's choice. Lincoln spends the entire film trying to win Michael, and what finally makes him worthy of Michael is when he stops treating him like something to win. For Mr. Cutler, the moment he sees the genuine bond that Michael and Lincoln have developed, he can't unsee it. As a father who just lost his only child, he has to come to grips with the fact that his own pain doesn't justify robbing Michael of a chance to have a relationship with his dad. That's a lot for someone to process in the span of a couple of minutes. Also, I do want to highlight something here because I think one of the most interesting parts of this film comes after Michael finds the letters and decides that he wants to be with Lincoln. We get a really lovely demonstration of some of the positive influences that these two men have had on Michael. That is an insanely resourceful kid. Lincoln literally taught him how to drive and instilled enough confidence in him in his own abilities behind the wheel that the child was comfortable driving alone on a California highway. In the movie, he also navigates taking a taxi home from the hospital by himself, as well as an unplanned solo trip through what I'm assuming is LAX. He then figures out on his own where the competition's being held, takes another taxi, this time through Las Vegas, and manages to evade Grandpa's goons to successfully find his dad at this competition. My guess is that some of that confidence and competence came from watching Mr. Cutler over the years. Lincoln taught him practical skills, and Mr. Cutler seems to have given him the confidence and resources to navigate the world around him. In the end, Michael is able to make his own choice because both of these men have, in very different ways, taught him how to be capable of making one. Though, can we all agree that everybody in this movie is really lucky that this kid didn't end up on a milk carton? So, what in the world is this movie? Well, I think it's a pretty nuanced look at father-son relationships, what it means to provide, and what it means to let go, all wrapped up in what I would consider to be a pretty impressive example of sports anthropology. Arm wrestling is the window through which we get to learn about the values, culture, rituals, and relationships surrounding the people who participate in it. It's the language through which Lincoln communicates things that he doesn't necessarily have the tools to verbalize. It also serves as a reminder that in sports as well as in life, one of your biggest competitors is yourself. Without consistent effort, you can lose before you even show up to the match. And with preparation and dedication and a willingness to bet on yourself, you too can defeat an opponent who looks like he could bench press you. I do want to tell you about one rabbit hole that I fell down while I was doing the research on this movie. John Brzenk, winner of the actual trucker division of the real over-the-top tournament, has a quick uncredited cameo in this film. Like, blink and you will miss him. He's considered one of the greatest arm wrestlers in the history of the sport. Many would call him the GOAT. There's a channel on YouTube called Coat of Arm Wars, and I'm going to leave a link below to their video about Brzenk's career and legacy in the sport. Dude's career was absolutely wild. Professional arm wrestling is considered a combat sport, and like other combat sports, it has weight classes. This man regularly competed in his own weight division and higher weight divisions during the same competition that's twice as much work as everybody else in the same competition. He has held titles across multiple weight divisions. That is crazy to me. If you know of anybody else in combat sports that has a history of doing something like that, let me know down below. I'm just super curious because that was mind-boggling to me. One of the other most dominant arm wrestlers of the time is a man named Johnny the Iceman Walker. There's a match between Brzenk and Walker from when they were both at the top of their game that is just... All of my research really highlighted for me how seriously this film took the sport of arm wrestling and how realistic their portrayal actually was. Also, you might not think it to look at me, but I love combat sports. There is a reason why I refer to my sweet baby boy Bruce Wayne as a gentleman of violence. Even though he's retired now, Tom Shoaff is still my favorite bare knuckle boxer of all time. If you've got a favorite combat sport or athlete, let me know down below. I'm curious what y'all are into. That's all I have on Over the Top. Seriously, go check this movie out. I've left a link for it in the description down below. It's free with ads. Tubi, I'm still waiting for that call. Please like, comment, subscribe, do all the things down below. And as always,
Jesus and I love you, Joe.
Jesus and I love you too, Lise.
Jesus and I love you. Later, y'all.